Hello and welcome to Small Business Snippets, the podcast from smallbusiness.co.uk. I'm your host, Anna Jordan. Today we have Piers Linney, an entrepreneur and investor who is best known for his time as a dragon on Dragon's Den. We'll be talking about Piers' enterprising beginnings and how you can drive your small business forward even during difficult spells. Hello, Piers.
Hi, Anna.
How are you doing?
Very good.
Great. Okay, as the intro suggests, I would like to go back a bit. As we know, it's easier for entrepreneurs to get started earlier and reach a wider audience with the likes of selling platforms like eBay and Depop. But you were entrepreneurial even when you were a teenager. That was before social media apps. I understand that you used to sell the Sunday papers, but you bypassed the...
Well, you're going way back now, but...
So you bypassed the newsagent because you saw a gap in the market there and you went straight to the wholesaler and you distributed the Sunday paper around your neighbourhood.
Yeah, so I think, just going back to your earlier point, so the fact you can start a business more easily these days, there's platforms to help you in terms of distribution, it doesn't mean you should. So it's still about the idea. So what I learned very early on, I was always fascinated about business really. So all of I grew up in a northern mill town. So a lot of the neighbours had their own businesses. I didn't really know anybody that had a job in terms of getting up in the morning and, going off to work. They were builders, quite sort of jobs where they worked with their hands. They were builders, they owned a quarry, or they were joiners. And I sort of thought, right, I had a job, which was my paper round, which is £5 a week. If I was late, it was £4.50. Shows how long ago this was. And I sort of thought that this is just a mug's game because it was very cold up in the north in those days. Global warming's made it easier. And I sort of thought, well, what can I do? So my dad one morning said to me on a Sunday, when they didn't deliver, can you get me my paper? I don't want to get out of bed. And I said, okay, I'll go and get it for you. And he gave me about 50p. And I thought, hang on a minute. That's pretty good money compared to what I'm earning in my paper round. Next door neighbour said to me, oh, can you do the same? My dad was telling me about the new service. And I thought, hang on, there's something in this. So I kind of flyed my whole neighbourhood and built a paper round. And I was earning £15-20 on a Sunday morning for doing a bit of a longer paper round. But it was my first sort of entree and my first understanding that if you find a niche and you find a product or a service that somebody wants, and it creates value and adds value to their lives that they're willing to pay for. And obviously, they're willing to pay you more than it costs you to deliver that service, i.e. it's profitable. Then you can actually create value and create, in this case, it was a small example, some wealth. And I used that money to buy my first very expensive BMX. And through that, I kind of understood that, the idea is great and the execution clearly, but what it also came down to was a lot of hard work and graft.
I imagine it must have taken quite a bit of confidence as well at that age. How did you approach the wholesaler and how did they respond to you?
I've never lacked self-confidence, which is probably something that is helpful in being an entrepreneur. But you can, becoming confident or becoming a leader in many ways is something that can be instilled in you, or you can be born with it, or it's something you can learn. I mean, the military, they train leaders. Sure. So I was always confident, and I could see the opportunity to make money. Yeah. And again, the wholesaler, all he got was another customer. It wasn't a newsagent. His bundle of papers, rather than drop it outside a newsagent, it was outside someone's house. It's a residential address. So he didn't really care. So he was just making a bit more money.
I understand that your mother set up her own business after retiring from nursing in the NHS. I'm sure that was some kind of inspiration to you.
People say to me, who are your role models in life? And I've never had formal mentors. My initial role models were my parents. My dad was a Mancunian working class lad who got into Cambridge on a scholarship. So he was bright. And then after that, it was people that I worked with. And I've always worked with people because they're more senior, that are better than me. Yep. And then after that, I've always tried to hire people that are better than me. So my morning today, I've had 3 meetings today, and they've all been with people that know more about something that I'm looking to get into. And that's really important because you never have all the answers. And the world's moving so quickly now, and the market's so dynamic that you can't be expected to have the answer. And if you think you have, you're probably wrong.
What would you say in terms of smaller business being able to hire better talent? Perhaps because they're more nimble, they can innovate at a faster rate. Would you agree with that?
I've been through this quite a few times where you've got a small business and you want to attract talent. Now, a couple of things. So the first one is that you shouldn't be concerned about really where talent resides. Now, if you want a talented forklift truck driver, they probably need to live reasonably near to your warehouse. But if you're looking at the creative economy and sort of tech-based businesses, talent can live anywhere now. It doesn't matter. The idea of cities even, is arguably unnecessary going forward into the future. So don't worry about where talent is. Just go for the best talent. You've then got to be creative to access real talent, because they're going to have other people talking to them. They might have a nice cushy job in a big company. So you've got to be creative about how you bring them on board, about remuneration. If you've got a company that you intend to sell or float one day, you can offer them shares. There's no point offering people shares in a company that's going to be a lifestyle business forever. They're just going to make money in dividends. So think about how do you add value to their lives. But the important thing is, a lot of entrepreneurs I kind of come across think that these senior people that are thinking of joining them are doing them a favour. And you've got to remember that you're doing them a favour, actually, because if they didn't want to leave, corporate life and do something more interesting and entrepreneurial where they can have a better, work-life balance, they wouldn't be talking to you. And when you bring people on board, no matter who they are, how talented they are, think very carefully about just handing out shares. Make sure if they leave, for whatever reason, you can get it back. But the talent is out there. And the other thing about talent, and I'm very passionate about, is diversity. There's a pool of talent. Yes. If you're looking for people that look like you, have the same religious beliefs as you, the same sexuality as you, they live in the same area, went to the same school as you, you're limiting your talent pool. And don't do that. You need to think about diversity in all of its forms, especially in terms of thought as well, to access a broader and deeper talent pool. That's a competitive advantage. So there's a huge amount of talent out there, and increasingly as you look forward, I'm a trustee of Nesta as well, the innovation charity, and if you look forward as the research about robotics and AI, menial jobs and even jobs such as accountants and lawyers, software is pretty good at adding up numbers, and it's pretty good at looking at data sets and applying logic to it. So it's not just Uber drivers or forklift truck drivers that have got a problem, it's the professions. So creativity is what differentiates us from the machines, and the talent you need to access now and in the future is going to be that has that creative edge. My mantra is that you've got to have a plan. I always say this, but your plan has to have some growth in it. Add some creativity, some innovation, some differentiation to your product or your service, so you attract different customers, because having no plan for growth in a world that's changing very quickly is a very bad plan. Because you wake up one morning and you'll find your market, your customers, your product, your supply chain, something's changed, which means that you're no longer relevant or you no longer have a profit margin.
I was actually reading an article about ice cream vans the other day, and they seem to be a type of business that there are some that have moved forward, but a lot of them are still in the same types of vans, still doing like your normal vanilla with a flake, and just they haven't moved on.
Should be doing smoothie vans. I don't know, but ice cream doesn't matter what you do. 20, 30 years ago, being generalising now, you could do that. I don't think it's a wise plan these days to ice cream van, corner shop, tech company, doesn't matter, to rest on your laurels. And you've got to keep talking to your customers about what it is they want.
Oh, definitely.
So you understand change, ideally, before it happens.
So you've spoken a bit about instilling the values of entrepreneurialism. How are you doing that with your two daughters?
Right. So another interesting thing that I'm quite interested in is the future of work, future of employment. In fact, Dell actually had some research saying that in 30 years, 85% of the jobs that exist don't exist today. There's other research which is, if they get 10 years out, half of them don't exist today. So you've got an education system that's trying to train your children to enter a world that the teachers don't understand, I don't understand, they certainly don't understand. So it's very difficult. So they've got to equip them with these sort of skills and keep them a bit like a rally car, I call it, sort of unweighted. So can you go left or right as you go over the brow of the hill? And that's hard to do. Now my daughter, I've got a daughter called Tiger, and I got called into school actually by the head, and she said, asked me, she's been selling things at school and they need to talk to her. And I kind of thought, she'd made like a couple of quid. I thought, what happened? She got some erasers, she was making them funky and selling them on at a margin. I said, well, how much money did she make? And she was like, well, £60. And I said, well, you need to tell her off. And I refused. I said, look, I take the point about taking money off the other kids. Maybe there should be some kind of bartering. But I'm not gonna punish my daughter for being entrepreneurial and making a bit of money, because that's all she'd ever see me do. Yeah,
exactly.
That's
like,
what Daddy does.
Is,
So it was quite interesting to see that. I bring them up to, they're young, so I don't really sort of sit down and go through how to start a business with them. But I think they get it, that my view is that, especially when they become, when they enter the labour market is if you can work for yourself. It's got its problems, it has its, you sacrifice, it's got its risks. But at the end of the day, you are masters of your own destiny.
You seem to have a knack for identifying emerging markets as well. What kind of emerging markets do you see coming up?
I was in sort of telecoms, which was kind of the tail end of that, really. That kind of the particular way that was done.
Yeah.
I was in cloud, and cloud, it's the way things are. And now, since then, I've been looking at what do I kind of do next.
Sure.
So I made some investments, some work, some don't. And I've kind of been looking at where can I do something which is big, something disruptive. And I've been looking at wellness, health, fitness. And I'm looking more now at actually going back almost into what I know, which is looking at markets, SME services, and trying to disrupt those, because a lot of them just have not changed. Even since I was in them 10 years ago, and even then, 10 years before that, they haven't changed. So I think there's an opportunity in there in services for small and medium-sized businesses to disrupt markets.
Coming on to everyone's favourite, Dragon's Den. I'm sure you would have had many, many pitches in your time on the show. What was the most memorable one for you and why?
Two, I suppose. So in terms of, I'll give you the negative funny one first. So that was Barthematic, which was a chap that turned up saying he wants, I think it was £1 million or £2 million for 20%. And he had a product which basically filled a bath and dropped some rose oil into it. And I kind of said, well, I'll do that myself, actually. I don't need to spend 15 grand on something that turns a tap on and off. And I said, well, what's the money really for? And he had this sort of pretend plaque kind of device that didn't really work. It was a mock-up. And he said he needed a floor in the shard for the marketing suite. And you laugh at that, but I've heard of entrepreneurs who've got equally bonkers ideas that have raised money from people.
Right.
So that was one of the sort of comedy moments. The most interesting one for me was a company at the time which was called Lost My Name, and now it's called Wonderbly. And that was it's probably the leading producer of personalised children's, it was books, and now it's increasingly becoming content. So they raised investment from the likes of Google and other venture firms, and they're progressing and it's growing. I was one of the first really to do real tech on Dragon's Den. And that was I think it was 4 or 5 Israeli entrepreneurs walked in the den with all had a venture capital term sheet, and I kind of thought, what's there not to like? Because they knew what they were talking about, and that's been very successful. So hopefully, our Dragon's Den, I'll make some money, because it's like a portfolio. Some work, some don't. Some you lose money, some make money.
Yeah, I mean, it's as you were saying as well. Personalisation is a huge market and growing, as is tech. So combine that. Yeah,
personalisation is everywhere now. If you look at, I've met lots of founders recently, and whether it's books or it's babies' clothes, and technology allows you to do that now. It was very hard, very expensive to do this. I mean, companies like, the Moonpigs and those kind of people of the world, and the Moo.coms, that personalised business cards or greetings cards, it's normal now. But it was very hard to do, a decade ago. So personalisations are something where you really can add value. And people, they want to see personalisation, they want to see provenance, they want to know the founder story. The new consumer that's beginning to amass disposable income, they want to see more. They don't want to have some clever advert that's sold on something they don't really want. But increasingly, people are interested in, not all sectors, but they're interested in, where does this product come from? Who's put it together? What's the ethos of that business? How do they treat their customers, their employees, the environment, locally, globally? And that's what you need to think about, because especially on the sort of eco side of things, I think you're seeing now that the millennials, whatever you want to call them, Gen Z, millennials now, like yourself, millennials now, they're called mid-level managers. In most companies now, they're moving up because they're getting older. And they are going to change and they are changing the way in which products and services are consumed, because these little things that never used to matter too much, they were seen as, you've got to have it for the marketing. Now you've got to have it, because if you don't have it, they're not going to buy your product or service.
And it's so easy to research as well. So if it's something that you fall down on, people can research it. Boom. 100%. There you go.
So that means you have to be transparent about it as well. So if you're not, then people are also going to start asking questions. But you don't have to be always. There are lots of people that make good money out of businesses. They don't do any of this. They've just found a product. I mean, mobile phones, I used to be mobile, and people made a lot of money out of it. And the service was pretty awful. But at the end of the day, they had a product that selling it was like shooting fish in a barrel, because it was an amazing new product that everyone wanted. Nobody had one, so you couldn't really go wrong. And those markets, haven't really changed much since.
At the time of recording, it is Small Business Advice Week. This year it's running from the 2nd to the 8th of September. First off, a little bit difficult to get around this topic. It may very well change by the time the podcast goes live. But what advice do you have for small businesses to prepare and operate in the event of a no-deal Brexit?
Well, the problem is with that is you don't know what a no-deal Brexit means. That's the bad thing about it, is that, we should not be in this position. Just generally in terms of entrepreneurs, that's what we're talking about, is They should not be in this position, because the economy depends upon entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship and innovation. And having a period of time where, and I've seen this on large scale and also small scale, where investment, decisions, sales cycles extend, things have been delayed, and that slows the economy down, and it has slowed the economy down, and that's going to continue. And even if we end up with a no deal, and it's been said that over time, we're all dead. So if you're looking at it in 1 year, it's probably bad. 5 years, 10 years, things change, and we'll find water will find its level again. But it's going to be a period of time where the innovation in the UK, the economy and entrepreneurs have been stifled. And I don't care what the outcome is, we should never have been put in this position. So, in terms of answering your question, it's very hard. You have to, it actually makes sense, and I hate saying this, it does make sense in many ways to delay investments, but in terms of maybe marketing or looking overseas, especially, or your EU relationships or your supply chain, is just give it a week. I mean, it was worse 6 months ago. At least now you're looking at maybe days and weeks.
Yeah, well,
it's a very hard question to answer, because it is, isn't it? Incredibly frustrating.
Yeah, we've had so many people ask.
Because there's no easy answer to that, sadly.
Yeah. And possibly something a little more positive. What's the most common question that you get, and what kind of advice do you give small business owners in return?
So one thing I'm talking about this week a lot is financing. I've worked in the US quite a lot, and you look at entrepreneurs there, and even small business owners, ones that aren't looking to grow exponentially. But if you need to grow a business, sometimes your net income, your profits, don't actually provide sufficient capital to fund your growth aspirations. You need to raise money. And that could be debt, it might be equity, depends where your business is in its life cycle and its profitability and your balance sheet. And a lot of UK entrepreneurs, they're afraid, it seems, the numbers show, of raising external finance. So raising external finance isn't for everybody, but given the numbers are sort of 70 to 80% of UK businesses would rather not raise external finance, they'd rather forego growth than raise external finance. That needs to change. I don't know exactly how much, but by changing that, you can actually put more into the sort of engine room of the UK economy and help these businesses grow. And that's really simplistically about understanding your options. There are lots more options now, whether it's peer-to-peer lending or challenger banks or angels or angel funds. There's lots more crowdfunding, lots of ways in which you can raise capital, which you couldn't do even 5 years, even 3 years ago in some cases. Go and look at the options if you need to grow, understand them, and then it comes down to a contract. Are you happy with the terms of that contract and the small print? Are you, can you lose your business? Can you lose your shirt? Are there draconian terms? So, this is where you need a good lawyer. I'm not joking about that either. So when someone hands over a term sheet or a document for debt or a shareholder agreement, if you're looking at equity, you need to understand exactly what that means for you, and not just on if things go well. You need to understand what happens if things don't go well. So. Extreme examples, there's no point having an investment agreement where you are restricted, or they have a veto over you raising debt and equity if you need to raise more, because they can hold a gun to your head essentially. There's no point having documentation if you're a startup that says that in year 4 you will hit this EBITDA number, or they have swamp rights, they can take over the board and fire you. Extreme examples, but I've seen them both professionally, and also I've seen them in things that have been put before me as well. So understand the detail and the small print, and make sure that if things don't go to plan, you know where you stand. And I've known one example recently where someone built a business, they had a 12 million valuation, they raised 2-3 million, and within a month they were out because they missed some sales target. But don't be afraid of raising finance if you want to grow, because otherwise in many cases you can't really grow.
Well, that's it for me, unless there's anything else that you would like to add.
No, we've covered some ground there.
Thanks for coming on the show, Piers.
It's a pleasure.
You can find out more about Piers at pierslinney.com. You can also visit smallbusiness.co.uk for more information on starting and growing your own business. Remember to like us on Facebook at Small Business Experts, and follow us on Twitter at Small Business UK, all lowercase. Until next time, thank you for listening.